start off by clarifying a couple of things. I concede that you didn't save the best for last. And the second thing, just to clarify, I don't know about an advantage, Mr. Pope, but I would never have a competing business against you. Just so you know that.
As long as you keep that in mind, we'll be in good shape.
I would like to just say a few thanks. First of all, earlier when Speaker Shakespeare was here, I'm going to tell you that's a big deal having a speaker from this parish that represents this parish, and he's going to be good for Livingston Parish. He's always been been open to us. I think he's going to do a great job as speaker, and I'm proud that he's there. The second thing, Mr. Pope, I every time I get a chance to share my appreciations for you, I try to, because I just know what you've meant to the school system, and I know what you've meant to this parish. And I'm real careful when we go to events that people talk about replacing this legislator and that legislator. I never say I'm replacing Mr. Pope. I'm just following Mr. Pope. But I have the utmost respect for what he's done, and thank you for all your leadership. And Joe, just thank you for having this venue. It's important that we as a parish are in front of our legislators. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Just to follow up on a couple of things. This legislative session is going to be, I'm excited about it, to be quite honest. There's a lot of talk about a lot of freshman legislators. Mr. Pope's a freshman legislator. He's just in the Senate. But we have some tremendously talented, capable, qualified, and successful freshman legislators. I'm really impressed with the talent pool. Their policy is yet to be seen. We'll see how that goes this first session, but I'm very, very optimistic about it. A couple of things, Brad talked about tort reform. I'm going to tell you, there's a huge appetite in the House for tort reform. We have met. I tell you, I've met with plaintiff attorneys. I've met with State Farm. I've met with judges. We probably had 3 or 4 meetings from the House. We're meeting tonight. We have an educational meeting on lawsuit reform. There's a huge appetite for tort reform, and I think we're going to get it. I just hope we get the right thing. Many years ago, the state had an appetite for educational reform, and I think because of the implementation and how it was done, it was just a squandered opportunity. And with the state and all the interest in doing insurance reform, I really hope we just do a good job of vetting all the issues that some of Mr. Pope talked about, and just collectively doing the best that we could. Mr. Pope talked about a few issues that I just want to just point out. When you start talking about centralized taxing, when you talk about ITEPs, when you talk about constitutional conventions and those things, those are issues that are real high priorities for your business communities and some of your special interests. And they're not always necessarily the best for your parish. And some of those things I know that we oppose. Does not make us anti-business. It just makes us looking out for the best interests of our parish. So historically, what you've had from legislators from Livingston Parish, because of their their support for public education, they get beat on a little bit, and that's okay. We've had some people with some big shoulders that go out there and they're going to do the right thing. So I can assure you, I don't like to speak for anyone, but I know Mr. Pope's always done what's best for Livingston Parish, and I assure you that I'm going to do the same thing. So another thing, we talked about the CAFA deal, Devin. I do have legislation proposed this session to make that, put that authority back in the locals. And we're going to keep everything in check. We're just going to have the opportunity to have input. We shouldn't have anyone outside of we don't like to give up our own taxes, right? But we're not going to, it's just not right to have someone outside our parish dictating what we do. So I do have legislation proposed on that. Let me just tell you, all of my 13 years on the school board, I've been very engaged in the legislative process. I have always reached out to legislators. LSBA does a really good job of giving us notices and telling us, encouraging us to reach out to our legislators. I've always done that. It's one of the reasons that's led me to an interest in being a legislator myself. So I want to just encourage you to, I think our parish politically in a lot of ways over the years, we've been too quiet. I mean, I think we need to work within our means with what we're supposed to be doing, but we need to be out there advocating for what's best in this parish, and that's being heard. And I encourage you to contact your legislators. I encourage you to have this event right here every year. Our legislators need to know how great job we're doing, but they also need to hear from some of our concerns. So when you get a message from LSBA to say, hey, contact your legislator on this, take the time to do it. Call them, text them, whatever it may be, because there's a lot of things that affect us. I can tell you, I haven't seen the legislation yet, but there's one out there that says school board members determine principals. They're going to let school board members, it's a bill proposed to let school board members select their principals.
That's from Representative Phelps in North Louisiana.
That's correct. And I think that would be horrible. But those things, we just have to reach out to our legislators and let them know your opinion. So it's been a hectic process for me. There's so many opportunities. Clay's, Speaker Shake Snyder spoke about him having 300 employees. When you're trying to get to know 104 legislators and 39 senators, 300 House staff, probably 400 lobbyists, and no telling how many other staff, it's a lot. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of issues to consider. And I've really been doing all that I can to get to know as many people as I could and get educated on as many topics as I possibly could. But there's a lot to it, but that's okay. But I'm glad y'all are coming out. Thank y'all very much for what y'all did this morning. It was very good. Everything was very great. Thank y'all. And I'll open it up to anybody got any questions for me. Anybody?
I think we all know you, buddy.
Yes, ma'am.
House Bill 107 deals with student payments for lunch debt. So while we're all CEP for Livingston Parish right now, after 2021, that could change. And that's a statewide mandated procedure and collection policy for school meal debt. Some of the wording in that bill is very lengthy in the time that it would take to collect that debt. I mean, do you know what they're doing as far as looking at the feasibility of that bill and what that would entail if it passed on the individual districts?
I can't speak on that specific bill. In fact, our pre-file deadline was last Friday, and I have not seen that legislation yet. But I assure you that from my perspective as a legislator from this parish, any legislation that comes out, first person I'm probably going to call is going to be Mr. Murphy. Then we're going to talk about how it affects the school system. And then I'm probably going to reach out to LSBA and different groups and see. So I do not know enough about that bill to speak on it. Do you know who authored it? Hughes. But we'll find out in the
I'm a little bit familiar with what Summer's speaking about. The procedural task that it would take to implement that bill are, I don't know what the right word is, massive, or...
It would undertake at least the staffing of 2 additional people.
Absolutely. It just...
At a minimum.
It's,
Collect student lunch debt.
we don't believe it's very feasible. Correct.
Correct.
That's the bottom.
I do think there's some good aspects to it, but I think that what they're proposing as far as collection procedures are not realistic, especially for a district our size.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you this, that that's a classic example of probably not many legislators can relate to that legislation in any capacity. So when things come across, it may seem like a good thing to do, but it just reemphasizes why we need to reach out to them and educate them on how it affects us on every single issue that we think we need to.
Next, what kind of money are we talking
For money related to this.
Well, it would lead to increased staffing in our school.
about? Without collecting it, what are we talking about?
Oh, I mean, if word got out, no, I mean, you could possibly have, 50% of your students never paying lunch debt and us not being able to collect that money, or having to hire so much additional staff in order to collect it. Because you're not, and you have to be, you require every student to have the exact same procedures and policies in place. So it's 3 meals, you have to do this, you have to report kids to social services, you have to determine whether or not these kids are being, or they're neglected, you have to report to the IRS to try to collect their taxes, all of that. So if word got out that you're not going to deny their kid a meal, that you can't withhold anything at the school level for unpaid debts, then, I mean, one mama tells another mama, and then next month you're going to collect less money, you're going to have to make kids charge.
Well, whenever that bill is presented in front of committee, I mean, I hope that we're considering going up there and, you know, representing our parish and how it impacted us. Anybody else? All right, well, y'all know how to get in touch with me.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
We know the general stance about how teacher pay raises are going to go. How do you and Mr. Pope wants to chime in here, how do y'all feel about the governor's statement and restatement and repackaging of the statement? As far as last year, he committed to continuing with the pay raises in this year in his initial budget. Now, when we went to the LSBA convention and he spoke, it was a political manipulation is what he was doing there. But what do y'all feel about from essentially the other side of the aisle?
Well, you know, I don't want to speak for the governor, but I will tell you that we have to give more teacher pay raises. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can, you know, I think we're going to be in I think we're going to a crisis point really with our educators. I mean, you can go to Southeastern's graduation, LSU's graduation, and you can see the decline in the legislators, I mean, the educators that we're turning out. So I think something has to be done, and they deserve it, you know. So I'm hopeful. You know, there are some issues with REC, Mr. Pope, and you can correct me if I'm mistaken, but you know, there were some monies that were not agreed upon from a budget standpoint when they did the REC. That may be a part of that process. I don't quite know, but I you know, we're going to hold him to the fact that he's going to try to work for teacher pay raise.
Well, his statement was, we're not going to stop giving pay raises until we get up to the southern average. But if you take into account the last pay raises from the basically 3 or 4 surrounding states that pretty much brought the southern average up another $1,500 to $2,000 from what it was when he made that statement. I don't want to say it sounds like he's going back on his promises, but it kind of sounds like he's hedging his bets now instead of moving forward with the way he stated it last year.
Well, I think we have to establish a budget to start off with, and then go from there, you know, to be quite honest, and we're not there yet, you know. So the House has to establish the budget, and then we'll see how the money shake out from there.
A lot of it is about posture.
Absolutely.
Well, that was really my statement. What do y'all feel about the way
Buddy
is he posturing the right way, or is he?
The lack of a recognition of additional monies that was not recognized by the REC, Revenue Estimating Conference, if you will. It's about it's probably going a little more than that at this point in time, probably $130 million that was not recognized. And I'm not speaking for him, but I'm having spoken to him. This was the money that he had intended to go to teachers or school employees. I keep saying school employees. And it could be a political calculation on his part to try to get this money recognized quicker than later, because it's going to be recognized. I can assure you before the session is over, that money will be recognized and it will be spent in some kind of fashion.
It's a question of what fashion.
And
But as we stand right
this
now, are we
card-carrying
still?
Republican right here
Mhm.
will tell you that it's about who gets credit for it and who don't get credit for it. That's the issue. But we're putting 100,000 people in the school business in peril because of turmoil. I won't say turmoil, but anxiousness every day because we having to play these games between the R's and the D's.
we okay with his stance as it stands right now?
I'm not okay
No.
with it. I mean,
Okay.
and I've told him I'm not okay with it. I think that he should have come out and been a little bit more forceful, in my opinion.
Okay,
Now,
that was the
And as I
base
stated
of
up
the
there a while
question.
ago, I think it's gonna get done.
You know,
But, I think he should have put it in there and let the chips with, you know?
mhm.
There are other issues he could have cut it somewhere else. And he had to put a balanced budget out there, I get that,
Yeah,
but,
okay. Because I felt like at the LSBA conference, they kind of, no, he's okay. In reality, I felt like, no, he's not okay. He's not doing what he said he was gonna do. So I was just curious if I was kind of out on a limb there, or did I read the room?
I'm not ready to give up on the fact that he'll fight for it yet,
Okay.
but
He can't live in his house if he don't fight for it. His wife's gonna carry him up.
Well, I think we have a little bit of time yet, but we need to be working it. We'd let people
Yeah.
know. Absolutely.
So we're in a good position, but the fact that he did kind of go back on what he said is not, it's not just me thinking that it's actually, he did kind of go back on what he said.
Well, I don't think we could ever say we're in a good position until it's in the budget. So that yet remains to be
and
seen.
you're absolutely correct about the other states in the southern regional average, because without a doubt, every one of them, some of them as much as $3,000, we give
Texas
$1,000,
went
and so
$5,000
$2,000 down there. So on an average, you're probably about $1,800 difference between the southern regional average and what we are today. So
Yeah,
catch-up is gonna be almost impossible.
and
The effort has gotta be there to continue to try to catch up.
And Mr. Pope, you know, he mentioned earlier, it's important that all of our employees are in there, that same boat. Everyone, our teachers, our support workers, you know, we brag all the time about the things that we're able to do. We do more with less, and it's because of our people, and it's because of each one of them. Anybody else? Thank y'all for what y'all do.